New York Attorney Letitia James is planning to announce a new lawsuit against the Department of Health and Human Services over healthcare funding cuts.
The White House is threatening our way of life. They're cutting Head Start. They want to cut Meals on Wheels. They want to cut the 9/11 healthcare fund. And that's why Democratic attorneys general will be joining me in filing this lawsuit in the coming days.
This comes just a few weeks after the White House referred James for prosecution over suspected mortgage fraud.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Political Detox, the show where we break down the political BS and call out the games being played. Today we're diving headfirst into a story that's got it all: scandal, accusations, and a whole lot of emotional manipulation. Buckle up, because things are about to get messy. We're talking about New York Attorney General Letitia James. She's been hit with some serious accusations, but instead of addressing them head-on, she's playing a different game. A game designed to make you feel something, anything, before you have a chance to think critically about what's actually going on. And trust me, the media's eating it up. They're more interested in headlines and sound bites than actual facts. So, get ready to detoxify the spin and see what's really going on beneath the surface.
I take it as an affirmation that you believe in the job that I have done as your Attorney General over the last 3 and 2 months. 3 years and 2 months. You believe that the rule of law should be applied to everyone equally. And you believe that no one, regardless of how powerful you are, that no one is above the law.
So what's Letitia James's big strategy for dealing with these accusations? It's simple. Deny everything and point the finger at Trump. No need for actual evidence or logical arguments. Just throw out those two magic words: baseless accusations. It's a classic political move. Instead of engaging with the substance of the accusations, she's trying to control the narrative by controlling your emotions. She wants her supporters fired up and angry, ready to defend her without question. But here's the thing. This isn't just about one politician and some accusations. It's about a dangerous trend in our political discourse where emotion trumps logic, and where the truth gets lost in a sea of outrage. This isn't just another day at the political circus. This is about the future of our democracy. When we let ourselves be ruled by emotions instead of facts, we all lose. We become vulnerable to manipulation and propaganda. Think about it. If we can't agree on basic facts, how can we possibly have a productive conversation about the issues that matter? How can we hold our leaders accountable? How can we make informed decisions about our future? So, stay tuned as we dissect this scandal, expose the tactics being used, and remind everyone that critical thinking is more important now than ever before. Now, you might be thinking, hold on, it's the media's job to report on these kinds of stories, right? And you'd be right. But there's a big difference between reporting the news and playing puppet to a carefully crafted narrative. And when it comes to Letitia James, certain media outlets aren't even trying to hide their bias. Instead of digging into the accusations, asking tough questions, and demanding evidence, they're just repeating James's talking points like a broken record. Baseless, they cry. Politically motivated. They're acting as a megaphone for her outrage, amplifying the emotional temperature without bothering to check if there's even a fire to begin with. This isn't journalism, it's activism disguised as news, and it's incredibly effective. When people are bombarded with the same message from every angle, it creates an echo chamber where dissenting voices are drowned out, and critical thinking goes to die. The trump card: deflection over substance. And you know what the oldest trick in the book is? When in doubt, blame Trump. And boy, are they playing that card for all it's worth. Every single conversation about Letitia James's scandal inevitably circles back to Donald Trump.
That no one is above the law.
His past behavior, his administration, his supporters. It's like a get-out-of-jail-free card for any accusation. But here's the problem with that strategy. It's a distraction. It's a way to shift the focus away from the actual issue at hand and onto a target everyone already has strong feelings about. It's emotional manipulation 101. By constantly invoking Trump's name, they're triggering a Pavlovian response in viewers. They're tapping into pre-existing anger, resentment, even fear, and using those emotions to cloud judgment and shut down any possibility of objective analysis. Drowning in headlines, starved for facts. Meanwhile, back in reality, the actual details of the accusations against Letitia James get lost in the shuffle. The evidence, the testimonies, the potential legal ramifications, it all fades into the background noise while the emotional orchestra plays on. We're drowning in headlines but starved for facts, and that's exactly how they want it. Because when people are overwhelmed with information, they tend to default to the simplest explanation, the one that requires the least amount of mental effort. And what's simpler than Trump bad, James good? It's a neat little package, pre-wrapped in righteous indignation, and ready to be consumed without question. The price of blind loyalty, when doubt becomes treason. This kind of blind loyalty is dangerous. It creates an environment where dissent is seen as betrayal, where questioning the narrative is akin to joining the enemy. It's a tactic as old as time, used by dictators and cult leaders alike to maintain control and silence opposition. If you dare to raise an eyebrow to suggest that maybe, just maybe, there's more to the story than what's being presented, you're immediately labeled a traitor, a Trump supporter, a threat to the cause. This kind of black and white thinking, this inability to hold conflicting ideas in one's mind, is incredibly damaging to a healthy democracy. It shuts down dialogue, stifles critical thinking, and ultimately, it prevents us from reaching any kind of meaningful understanding or resolution.
Test what we stand for, what a real, true Democrat acts like in their public life, and more importantly, how they conduct themselves in private life.
We live in a world of instant gratification, where everything moves at warp speed. News cycles last minutes, not days. Social media feeds are a never-ending torrent of information, misinformation, and everything in between. It's no wonder we've become a society of knee-jerk reactions where outrage is a reflex and critical thinking is an afterthought. Think about it. How many times have you seen a headline, felt a surge of anger or indignation, and immediately fired off a comment or shared the post without even reading the full article? We've all been there. It's human nature to react emotionally to information, especially when it confirms our existing biases. But this instinctual reaction, this need to immediately pick a side and defend it with the ferocity of a lioness protecting her cubs, comes at a cost. It prevents us from engaging with the nuances of the situation, from considering alternative perspectives, from asking the essential questions that lead to actual understanding.
I can say unrelated to that, she's a disaster for New York. She's a horrible, horrible human being, and I think she's a total crook. There's no question about it, but that's just my opinion. Pam's going to have to do what she wants. She's a very bad person. She's a very bad person who campaigned solely on, I'm going to get Donald Trump over and over again. She's a sick person, but that's has nothing to do with what Pam does. Pam is going to do what's right. She always does. I've known her a long time.
When we allow ourselves to be swept away by the tide of outrage, we lose sight of the bigger picture. We become so fixated on the emotional narrative, the good guys versus the bad guys, the righteous anger, the thirst for justice, that we miss the forest for the burning trees. In the case of Letitia James, the emotional narrative is clear. She's the victim of a political witch hunt, targeted by Trump and his cronies because she dared to challenge his power.
It's 175 million. And I don't think she's complaining about me for the first time ever. She's complaining about the company. She's questioning the bonding company. Well, when you put up cash, and the number is 175, which is what we're supposed to be putting up, but I give it in cash, she shouldn't be complaining about the bonding company. The bonding company would be good for it because I put up the money. And I have plenty of money to put up.
It's a compelling story. One that resonates deeply with anyone who's ever felt powerless against a corrupt system. But while we're busy focusing on the flames of Trump's alleged vendetta, the actual accusations against James, the evidence presented, the potential legal ramifications, all of that gets lost in the smoke. We become so invested in the emotional narrative that we lose the ability to see beyond it, to even consider the possibility that there might be another side to the story. This selective focus, this deliberate manipulation of emotions, has a corrosive effect on our trust in institutions. When we see the same patterns playing out again and again, accusations met with blanket denials, evidence ignored in favor of emotional appeals, the media acting as a mouthpiece for one side, it's hard not to feel like the whole system is rigged. And when that happens, when we lose faith in the very institutions designed to hold our leaders accountable and ensure justice is served, it creates a breeding ground for cynicism, apathy, and ultimately, disengagement. Why bother paying attention? Why bother engaging in the political process if the outcome is predetermined, if the game is rigged from the start? This is the real danger of emotional manipulation in politics. It's not just about one scandal or one politician, it's about the slow but steady erosion of trust that forms the foundation of a healthy democracy. The slippery slope of cynicism. Apathy is a dead end. Cynicism is a seductive mistress. It's easy to throw up our hands and say, "They're all corrupt anyway, what's the point?" It's comforting to retreat into the echo chambers of our own beliefs, surrounded by those who share our outrage and confirm our biases. But cynicism is a dead end. It leads to apathy, to disengagement, to the slow death of civic responsibility. When we check out, when we stop caring, when we allow ourselves to become numb to the manipulation and the lies, we cede our power. We become passive observers in our own democracy, watching from the sidelines as the very values we hold dear are eroded away. Old tricks, new players. Now, some of you might be looking at this whole Letitia James situation and thinking, wow, this feels familiar. Haven't we seen this movie before? You're absolutely right. This playbook, this reliance on emotional manipulation and deflection over substance, it's not new. It's as old as politics itself. Politicians have been playing on our emotions, exploiting our fears and biases since the dawn of time. And politicians throughout history have been more than happy to exploit those vulnerabilities for their own gain. One of the oldest tricks in the political playbook is the art of projection. When facing accusations, the instinct is often not to defend oneself with facts and logic, but to deflect, to point the finger back at the accuser, to muddy the waters with counter-accusations. It's a classic case of the best defense is a good offense. And who better to accuse than the person or group already demonized in the eyes of your supporters? It's a cynical tactic, but incredibly effective. By painting themselves as the victim of a conspiracy, a witch hunt, a coordinated attack by their political enemies, they tap into a deep well of resentment and distrust that already exists within their base.
Today, we are holding Donald Trump accountable. We are holding him accountable for lying, cheating, and a lack of contrition, and for flouting the rules that all of us must play by. Because there cannot be different rules for different people in this country, and former presidents are no exception.
Suddenly, the focus shifts from the actual accusations to the motivations of those making them. The conversation becomes less about facts and evidence and more about tribalism, about defending your side against the perceived enemy. Mudslinging and distraction. Another common tactic in the political playbook is the creation of what we'll call the fog of war. It's about overwhelming the public with so much information, so many accusations, so much drama, that it becomes impossible to separate fact from fiction, signal from noise. This is where the 24/7 news cycle, with its insatiable appetite for anything that bleeds or leads, becomes a powerful weapon. Every new development, every salacious detail, every angry tweet is amplified and dissected ad nauseum, creating a constant state of information overload.
Mr. Trump's comments were offensive, they were baseless, they were void of any facts and/or any evidence. What they were comments that unfortunately fomented violence, and comments that I would describe as race baiting, and comments, unfortunately, that appeals to the bottom of our humanity. This case was brought simply because it was a case where individuals have engaged in a pattern and practice of fraud. And I will not sit idly by and allow anyone to subvert the law. And lastly, I will not be bullied. And so Mr. Trump is no longer here. The Donald Trump show is over. This was nothing more than a political stunt, a fundraising stop. And now we can continue to go forward with our trial, and we are confident that justice will be served. Thank you all for coming.
The goal is not to enlighten, but to exhaust. to wear down the public's capacity for critical thinking, to make them throw their hands up in exasperation and say, "It's all just politics. Who can even tell what's true anymore?" The sad reality is, this cycle of emotional manipulation, deflection, and misinformation is likely to continue unless we, the people, demand better. As long as politicians believe they can get away with it, as long as the media is more interested in ratings than truth, as long as we, the public, continue to reward outrage over reason, nothing will change. But here's the good news. We have the power to break this cycle. We can choose to be more discerning consumers of information. We can demand better from our leaders and hold them accountable for their actions. We can refuse to be played by their emotional games and instead insist on a return to reason, to evidence, to civil discourse. The choice is ours. We can continue down the slippery slope of cynicism and apathy, or we can choose to engage, to think critically, to demand better from those in power. The future of our democracy may very well depend on it. So there you have it. The Letitia James scandal isn't just about one politician or one set of accusations. It's a microcosm of a much larger problem plaguing our political discourse. The triumph of emotion over reason, the weaponization of outrage, and the erosion of trust in our institutions. But here's the thing. We don't have to accept this as the new normal. We can choose to resist the siren song of emotional manipulation. We can choose to reclaim our critical thinking skills, to demand evidence over empty rhetoric, to see through the fog of political spin and get to the heart of the matter. It starts with questioning everything. Don't just accept what you're told, whether it's from politicians, the media, or even your own social media echo chamber. Dig deeper, seek out alternative perspectives. Consider the possibility that there might be more to the story than what's being presented. It's easy to feel powerless in the face of this kind of political maneuvering. The stakes seem so high, the players so powerful, the system so entrenched. But here's the truth, you are not powerless. Your voice matters. Your actions have an impact. Every time you choose to engage in thoughtful discussion instead of knee-jerk reaction, you're making a difference. Every time you challenge misinformation, call out hypocrisy, or demand better from your elected officials, you're chipping away at the foundation of this broken system. Don't underestimate the power of your own critical thinking, your own willingness to engage in respectful dialogue, your own refusal to be manipulated by fear and outrage. You have the power to be a force for positive change, to help create a more informed, more engaged, and ultimately, more democratic society. So what can you do? Be a part of the solution. Commit to detoxifying our political dialogue. Replace outrage with reason and empathy. Be a critical consumer of information. Engage in respectful dialogue. Demand better from your leaders. Be the change you want to see. Let's reclaim our democracy.
The Constitution laid out clear guidelines on how to run our government, on how to protect our most basic rights, and on how to ensure against tyranny. Especially now, as we see the new administration in Washington on a literal rampage of lawlessness, cruelty, aggressiveness, and overt bigotry. Reducing the depth and breadth of our federal government. Our standing across the globe has been diminished, and our economy is tanking right now.